Every game in the NFL is a war, and the players are like fighters. But even in battle, there are rules that must be respected. Not everyone plays by the same rules. Discover the story of Vontaze Burfict, the most hated player of all time. Before we begin, remember to subscribe to Go to Football and turn on the notification bell to stay updated. Vontaze Burfict, former linebacker of the NFL, is the classic story of a great talent limited by excessive temperament, which prevented him from showing all his potential. Burfict comes from a difficult past, which has marked his character. Born in Los Angeles, son of former gang members, young Vontaze grew up among many difficulties with his mother and brother. His father, due to legal problems, entered and exited prison, practically having no relationship with his family. Like many other boys, Burfict saw in football the possibility of escaping the difficulties of life. And on the field, the boy was a real beast. From a young age, Burfict stood out, becoming the point of reference for his team in high school. Although he was forced to miss his second season due to academic problems, he bounced back the following year. As a junior, Burfict led the Centennial High School team in many conflicts, with 130 tackles, helping them to rank among the top 25 high school teams in the United States. As a senior, Burfict continued to shine, leading his team in tackles once again with 159 and winning a state championship. Thanks to that team, the Centennial High School ranked second in the country. On one hand, Burfict's reputation grew as a player, but at the same time, a notorious reputation developed that would follow him for years as a hard and dirty player. A key incident involved the future NFL quarterback, Matt Barkley. During a play, while Barkley was throwing the ball, Burfict launched himself without hesitation at Barkley's knees, disregarding the ball. It was an unsportsmanlike play that Barkley would not forget. This aspect of his game, however, was constantly overshadowed by his excellent performances on the field. Burfict's impact on the game was devastating, and so many experts ignored his difficult character. Burfict was ranked as one of the best prospects in the nation, and was even selected for the U.S. Army All-American Bowl in 2009. In college, several universities were knocking on Vontaze Burfict's door. The young linebacker was highly sought after, and the University of Southern California, Colorado, Tennessee, Miami, and Arizona State were all vying for his talent. Even some of the biggest college football teams came knocking at his door to try to persuade him to join their rosters. Burfict initially chose the Trojans of the University of Southern California, but later decided to play for the Sun Devils of Arizona State in Arizona. Burfict wasted no time and immediately showed his new teammates and coaches his temper. A local journalist claimed that the freshman Burfict was at the center of fights in every practice. But once again, his excellent performances overshadowed his bad behavior. With the Sun Devils, Burfict once again shone on the field. He played in every game, recording 69 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. Burfict was named Pac-10 Defensive Freshman of the Year. His impact in college football was devastating for a freshman, and expectations for the young linebacker became even higher. In fact, in his sophomore season, Burfict was named to the preseason All-America talent list. But then, the problems caused by his temper began. In fact, during a game against Oregon, Burfict went too far and did something that could no longer be ignored. After missing a tackle on the Beavers quarterback, Burfict got up and gave him a headbutt. Burfict's behavior left the coaches with no choice. They decided to keep him out of the starting lineup for the next game in the hopes that it would serve as a lesson for him. Do you think he learned his lesson? No, clearly not. Despite this, Burfict ended the season with 90 tackles, 8.5 tackles for loss, and 2 forced fumbles. However, his dirty game was noticed, and he was labeled the meanest man in college football. Nonetheless, his on-field performances left no doubt that Burfict was seen as one of the best linebackers and prospects out there. However, in the following season, Burfict was unable to have the impact that was expected of him, recording 21 fewer tackles than the previous season and 0 forced fumbles. But even after a disappointing season, Burfict decided to declare himself eligible for the 2012 NFL Draft. With an impact on the game lower than his standards, people were beginning to focus on his behavioral problems, rightly focusing on an excessively aggressive temperament. Burfict collected 22 personal fouls in 37 games, more than anyone else, an unacceptable figure at any level. His chances in the draft had dramatically changed, And in fact, Burfict was not selected by any team and became a free agent. Later, the Bengals gave him a chance and offered him a 3-year contract of $1.44 million with a $1,000 signing bonus. Burfict's approach with the Bengals was positive, and during training, he gained the team's trust, which put him in all 16 games of the season. Burfict that year seemed to have matured and stayed out of trouble, having impeccable behavior. It seemed like a turning point, but it was not. In his second season, those beloved old habits returned. In the third week of the season, during the game between the Bengals and the Packers, Vontaze received his first fine for hitting tight end Ryan Taylor below the belt while the play was stopped. During the same game, he nailed James Jones on the head, who was considered a defenseless receiver. 3 games later, Vontaze got hit with 3 different 15-yard penalties. And then, against the Jets, he made this insane and totally reckless hit on wide receiver Stephen Hill. All these incidents might have tarnished the reputation of anyone else, but not Vontaze Burfict. Once again, thanks to his incredible performance, he diverted attention from his poor behavior. In 2013, he led the NFL with 171 tackles, earning himself a Pro Bowl invitation, the first Bengals linebacker to achieve this since 1976. The following season, Burfict suffered a knee injury that forced him to sit out the entire season. But even in only 5 games, he managed to make his mark, though not in an excellent way. He was caught mischievously twisting the ankles of Cam Newton and Greg Olsen during the game. In 2015, Burfict got hit with a pretty hefty fine, $69,454, for 2 different penalties. The first was for diving with the intent of hitting Ben Roethlisberger's knees. And then in Week 17, he got another $50,000 fine for a cheap shot on Ravens tight end Max Williams. So things really came to a head in the wildcard game between the Bengals and the Steelers. With less than 20 seconds left in the game, Burfict hit Antonio Brown in the head, causing a concussion and forcing him to leave the game. The referees called a penalty, and that ended up costing the Bengals the game, and their whole season. As a result, Burfict was suspended for the first 3 games of the following season. The madness continued for Burfict in the 2016 season. He got slapped with a $75,000 fine for stomping on Patriots running back LeGarrette Blount, and another $12,154 for flipping off Bills fans. Yikes. But things got even worse during the preseason of 2017. He savagely hit Chiefs fullback Anthony Sherman, even though Sherman wasn't even part of the play. The NFL was so outraged by Burfict's behavior that they suspended him for 5 games. Though that was later reduced to 3. And even after he returned to the field, Burfict still hadn't managed to clean up his act. He was fined $12,154 for kicking Steelers fullback Roosevelt Nix in Week 7. It seems like he just couldn't stay out of trouble. So things really came to a head between Burfict and the Steelers. After all the previous incidents, he had become the most hated person in Pittsburgh, and tensions were running sky high for the Bengals-Steelers game in Week 13. And then Juju Smith-Schuster stepped up to speak for Pittsburgh's resentment against the Bengals linebacker. During the game, Smith-Schuster saw his chance and delivered a hard blindside tackle that knocked Vontaze down. And the best part? Smith-Schuster's celebration, standing over the Bengals linebacker, has become iconic. It's like Burfict finally got a taste of his own medicine. But even after all of that drama, it still seemed like Burfict just couldn't stay out of trouble. During the 2018 season, he was first suspended for violating the NFL's PED policy, and then hit with a whopping $100,000 fine for some reckless hits on Antonio Brown and James Conner. It's like the guy just couldn't catch a break. At the end of the season, the Bengals had had enough and decided to part ways with their extremely problematic linebacker. In just 7 seasons with Cincinnati, Burfict managed to accumulate over $4.5 million in fines, and he only earned $871,000 from his contract in his first 2 seasons with the Bengals due to his behavior. Given a second chance will be a team that has made aggressive play a mantra, the Oakland Raiders. Burfict has signed with them a 1-year contract for $5 million. Things started off on the right foot for Burfict with the Raiders. During the first practices of the 2019 season, he impressed the coaching staff and players in Oakland and was named captain, hailed as a real leader. However, his hopes for redemption were quickly dashed when he hit tight end Jack Doyle with his helmet, while Doyle was kneeling defenseless. Even for someone like Burfict, this was too much, and he was immediately ejected from the game. the league decided to take unprecedented action by suspending Burfict for the rest of the season. His 12-game suspension was the longest in NFL history. After that season, Burfict became a free agent and announced that he wanted to continue playing in the NFL. But no one wanted him on their team, and to this day he remains unsigned. Though he hasn't officially retired, Burfict will go down in NFL history for all the wrong reasons, as one of the most unsportsmanlike and hated players of all time. That's it for today, guys. What do you think? Have there been other players like or worse than Burfict? Let us know in the comments. And remember, if you liked the video, remember to leave a like and Eichriver to Go to Football, the channel made by fans for fans. Thanks for following. See you next time.